Most men think that asking the right question will finally bring them the truth. But here's what most of them never understand. A lie doesn't collapse because of a question. It collapses because of psychological pressure replied in the right way. Today, he isn't going to guess. He isn't going to beg for transparency today. He's going to reveal 7 psychological triggers that make it almost impossible for a woman to keep lying. These are not feel-good theories from a relationship book. They are retested field techniques used in real situations by real men with a 100% confession rate. Not partial truth. Note it only happened once. Full disclosure, complete honesty. Even when she's sourish would take the secret to her grave. But before we dive into these methods, he has one simple request. Hit the like button. Not for ego, but because it helps other men who desperately need this information. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss any of these psychological tactics again. And drop your city in the comments, not just for curiosity, but as proof that men all over the world, whether in New York, London, or Tokyo, are fighting the exact same silent battle. Now, listen carefully. And this part is important. These triggers should only be used if you are truly ready to know everything, because once they are applied, there is no turning back, no comfortable lie to fall asleep with, number illusion left to hide behind. If a man uses these techniques before he's mentally prepared, the truth may break him. But if he uses them with clarity and courage, the truth will set him free. That is the difference between a reactive man and a Stoic strategist. So, if you're ready, really ready to see behind the curtain, then stay until the very end. The first psychological trait will change the way you look at excellence forever. Technique 1. Reverse a confession. The average man makes the mistake of begging for honesty. Just tell me the truth, please. But a man trained in psychological strategy never asks for the truth. He creates the conditions where the truth exposes itself. That's exactly what the reverse a confession technique is designed to do. Here's how it works. Instead of asking, "Are you hiding something?" he looks her in the eyes and calmly says, "Someone already told me what happened. But I went to hear your version, so I know exactly how serious it is. Notice something important." He never says who told him what they said or how much he knows. And that's where the power lies. In that single moment, her mind goes into overdrive. Who told him? Was it my friend? Did someone at work see us? She starts replaying everything she did, every person who might have noticed. And no, she begins to assume he already knows at least part of the truth. And here's the psychological trigger Mossman overlook. When a woman thinks she's already caught, she automatically rushes to control the damage. That means she'll start talking first, trying to shape the story, to give a less painful version of truth, to confess a little so you won't look for more. But by doing this, she often reveals far more than she intended. Details, names, intentions, all in an attempt to control the emotional impact. A Stoic man doesn't interrupt. He listens. He observes how the story forms. He watches for the inconsistencies, the unplanned admissions, the sudden emotional shift when she realizes she just exposed herself. Because this technique isn't about catching someone. It's about revealing what's already there, just buried under fear and manipulation. So before you use reverse confession, ask yourself one simple question. Am I prepared to hear everything, even the I never asked for? If the answer is yes, then calmly say the words and let her own conscience do the talking. Technique 2. False detail drop. Mossmen think they need proof before confronting a woman who may be lying. A wiser man understands that sometimes you'll create the proof by simply introducing the right kind of pressure. That's the entire philosophy behind Technique 2, the false detail drop. He doesn't accuse. He doesn't ask a question. Instead, he calmly drops a detail, asmal, believable detail that happens to be completely made up. For example, he looks at her and says, "I already know you were with him in his red car Tuesday night." In reality, he has no idea what color the man's car is. He's not even certain she was with anyone. But pay attention to what happens next. If she's completely innocent, she look confused. She may ask, "What are y'all talking about?" Or simply stare with genuine surprise. But if she's hiding something, Her brain kicks into defensive correction mode and automatically responds with the truth in order to correct you. Red car. What are you talking about? His car is blue. In that one moment, she's confirmed 3 things. 1. The man exists. 2. She knows exactly what car he drives. 3. She's been in the car because she felt the need to correct the detail. This is pure psychological warfare. A Leo ready requires mental effort to maintain. When you introduce a believable but false detail, her brain has to process it as a real threat. And under cognitive load, most people will instinctively correct the lie, which means they just told you the truth. Stoic strategy isn't about aggression. It's about leverage. So drop a detail that's specific but plausible. Then remain absolutely calm. Let her own words expose the reality. And remember, a man who watches and listens with patience discovers far more than a man who demands answers. Technique 3. Future consequence scenario. A man who understands psychology never pressures a confession directly. Instead, he offers a choice, a path toward mercy and a path toward destruction, and then allows your own imagination to decide which one to take. This is the logic behind technique 3, the future consequence scenario. He approaches calmly and says something like, "Listen, I can forgive a mistake if you tell me everything right now. But if I end up finding out from somebody else," then he stops. He doesn't finish sentence. He doesn't explain what will happen. He simply lets the silence hang in the air. Here's what happens inside her mind. She suddenly steps into the uncertainty of the unknown. She starts imagining all the worst-case possibility, arguments, divorce, losing everything. And psychological research shows that fear of the unknown is almost always stronger than fear of known punishment. At the same time, he has opened a small door of hope, the possibility of forgiveness. That small hope becomes irresistible when combined with the fear of something undefined and uncontrollable. And so to protect herself from the fear, she chooses the only path where she feels some level of control. She starts talking not because she wants to be honest, but because her brain wants certainty even if the truth is painful. This is why the technique works so well. The Stoics teach that the mind is most vulnerable when it is tossed between hope and fear. A wise man doesn't finish the threat because the mind will create a far more terrifying conscience than anything he could say. So the rule is simple. Offer forgiveness only once. Leave the threat unfinished and let her own imagination guide her toward the truth. If you remain calm, she will fill the silence with the very information you were looking for. Technique 4. The silent stare. Mosmen use words as their weapon. They ask, they accuse. They argue. But a man trained in psychological strategy knows that sometimes silence is far more powerful than speech. That's the essence of technique 4, the silent stare. Instead of confronting her with a question, he simply sits down across from her, locks eyes, and says nothing. Not for 5 seconds, anyone can handle that. But for 30 to 60 seconds of complete unbroken stillness. Why does this work? Because female psychology is fundamentally wired for connection through communication. From an early age, women are socialized to fill the empty spaces in conversation, to maintain harmony, to avoid uncomfortable silence. But when that silence is combined with that knowledge that something might be wrong, and when it comes from a man who is clearly aware but not reacting emotionally, it creates a pressure she can barely tolerate. This is known as conversational pressure. The longer the silence lasts, the more her guilt amplifies the discomfort until she finally breaks and starts talking. An asterisk, here's the most important point. Whoever breaks the silence first loses the power dynamic. That's why a Stoic man must remain calm, not angry, not judgmental, just completely composed as if he's simply waiting for a truth that has already been decided. No threats, no questions, silence, eye contact, stillness. If she's hiding something, it will spill out of her. If she's innocent, she asks what's wrong, but her eyes and body language will show confusion, not fear. This technique isn't about intimidation. It's about creating space. Space where the truth is no place to hide. So, don't underestimate a silent stare. Used with right timing, it breaks even the most carefully structured lie. Technique 5. Calm accusation. Most women are prepared for anger. They're prepared for shouting, emotional outbursts, tears, even accusations. Because when a man reacts emotionally, it gives her an easy escape. You're overreacting. You're being paranoid. I can't talk to you when you're like this. That's why Technique 5, the calm accusation, is so devastatingly effective. He doesn't argue. He doesn't beg for answers. He simply looks her in the eye and states with complete composure, I know you're cheating. No raised voice, no dramatic tone, just certainty. The psychological effect is immediate. Women know how to deflect emotional confrontation. They practice it their entire lives. But very few know how to deal with a man who is calm, logical, and completely unmoved. That calmness communicates one thing: he's not guessing. He already knows there is no space for her to flip the script or accuse him of being insecure. There is no opportunity to hide behind how he's acting. She is forced to face the accusation directly. And more often than not, that pressure shatters the final layer of resistance. A Stoic man understands this truth. When emotion is removed, only the facts remain. Her usual tactics, denying, crying, blaming, no longer work because he refuses to engage emotionally. He simply presents the fact, stays silent, and waits. And in that moment, she realizes the game is over. Not because he yelled, but because he stayed completely still. Men who master this technique often represent something remarkable. The confession comes not in anger but in tears because for the first time she feels exposed and he holds all the power. So remember, don't accuse with rage, accuse with certainty. It's not the loud voices that brings the truth. It's the steady own. Technique 6. Known facts first. One of the biggest mistakes men make during a confrontation is asking general questions. Are you cheating? Is there someone else? Those questions give her exactly what she needs, a simple yes or no that she can lie about with full confidence. A trained man uses a very different tactic. He starts not with a question, but with a statement based on something he supposedly already knows. For example, yesterday at 8 p.m. you weren't where you said you were. Even if it's not 100% certain, he says it with complete conviction. And here's the psychological trick. When a woman hears a specific statement, her brain automatically assumes there is evidence behind it, which means her focus instantly shifts from how do I deny this to how do I explain this. That's when the truth begins to slip. She starts clarifying, adding extra details, changing parts of the story to make it sound more believable. And in the process, she unintentionally confirms that she was lying in the first place. The power of this technique is simple. It shifts the burden of proof from the man to her. Rather than him trying to prove she's lying, she tries to prove she's telling the truth. And it requires far more mental energy to maintain than the truth. That's also why small contradictions begin to appear. Details don't match. Timelines change. Explanations become long and overlimpished. A Stoic man remains completely silent while she tries to fix the story. He doesn't react. He observes. Because every extra word she speaks is a new piece of evidence. In the end, she doesn't simply confess. She builds the case against herself with her own words. So remember, never ask, are you cheating? Start with what you already know and let her struggle to explain why her story no longer fits reality. Technique 7. Switch of empathy. Sometimes the most effective way to uncover the truth isn't through pressure or confrontation, but through a sudden shift in perspective. That's what makes Technique 7, the switch of empathy, so powerful. He doesn't question her. He doesn't even talk about her behavior. Instead, he calmly asks a simple but deeply uncomfortable question. If I did the same thing behind your back, how would you feel? At first, she may try to brush it off with a casual answer, but human mind doesn't let go of a question like that so easily. It forces her to visualize the situation, to imagine herself being betrayed, to feel the same doubt, pain, and dishonesty she's been hiding from. And once that emotional mirror is placed in front of her, one of two things happens. Either she genuinely can't relate, which often indicates innocence, or she becomes visibly uncomfortable because the scenario is already too close to reality. The key here is psychological. When someone is lying, they operate from a place of emotional detachment. They didn't think about how their actions would feel if the roles were reversed. The switch of empathy removes that emotional shield. And here's what most men don't realize. Guilt becomes much harder to maintain once empathy is activated. That's why this technique often triggers sudden honesty. Not in form of a full confession at first, but through micro-reactions. Hesitation, a shaky voice, eye contact breaking, or run uncomfortable. Why would you even ask that? A stoic man watches those reactions calmly. He doesn't push. He simply lets her sit with the question, knowing that if she's been hiding something, the weight of that mirror will eventually become too heavy to carry. So the lesson is clear when logic isn't enough. Sometimes the most strategic move is to guide her into the emotional reality of her own actions. The truth is much easier to admit when Chesh's finally felt what it would be like to live with it. Before ending this video, there's one thing he wants every man watching to understand clearly. These 7 techniques are not about manipulation. They're not tools for revenge or tricks to
humiliate someone. They are weapons of clarity designed
to restore balance in a relationship that has already been poisoned by dishonesty. Every single technique shared today is built on real psychological principles, not games. They work because they remove escape routes. They pull down the masks and they force the truth to stand on its own. But here's the critical part. A man should only use them if he's truly prepared to hear whatever truth may come out and act on it. If his suspicions turn out to be wrong, then he has gained something priceless. Peace of mind and proof that his relationship still stands on trust. But if his suspicions are confirmed, then he has gained something just as valuable. The truth, he needs to make a clear decision and protect his dignity. Either way, uncertainty dies. And that in itself is a form of freedom. So here's what he asks of you now. Backhand index pointing right. Drop the number of the technique you found the most effective in the comments. Backhand index pointing right and include the name of your city so other men can see that they are not alone in this. Some will be watching from New York, others from Dallas, some from London or Melbourne. Differences, same problem, and finally some knowledge to fight it. Also, if this video gave you real value, hit like and subscribe. Not for applause, but some more men who are silently doubting their intuition can finally understand what's really going on. And remember this, a strong man doesn't build his life on comforting lies. He builds it on uncomfortable truths because only the truth can support the weight of a real future. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and never apologize for protecting your peace.